Chapter 1. You are listening at FameTV.info. Translator. Tuan Editor. Tuan. It was a cold winter night. Fu Qing's head was throbbing so much that it was almost going to explode at any moment. She shakily took a deep breath before trying to open her eyes, but she was suddenly pressed down by a heavy object that knocked the air out of her lungs. She couldn't breathe at all. A foul stench entered her nostrils as she forced her eyes open. Under the dim yellow light, she caught a glimpse of a face full of acne. Ah! She exclaimed unwittingly and tried to push the man away from her. However, there was a huge difference in their strength, and her efforts didn't seem to make the man budge at all. Such a beauty, don't be afraid. I may be ugly. The man's grin was wretched as he leaned in to whisper against her earlobe. But my dick is very big. I can assure you that it'll make you very comfortable. His hot breaths left Fu Qing's skin tingling. As soon as he whispered those words, he grabbed her hand and pressed it against his body. She could only watch in horror and disgust at the hands that were grabbing her. They were so filthy and dark, he must have not washed them for years. One could not even recognize his fingernails. He wasted no time in teasing her. Since you don't seem to believe me, touch it for yourself. Isn't it very hard? Fu Qing couldn't struggle anymore, his grip was as strong as iron. Although she tried to pull away, her fingertips ended up brushing against his thing. The shock and disgust was evident as her stomach instantly felt nauseous. She couldn't help but retch at the sensation. Slut! How dare you behave like that? Displeased by her reaction, the man gave her a loud slap. He continued to slap her continuously until her head was dizzy from the impact, and she was no longer able to fight back. Still, the man was furious, and he got off her momentarily to hit her harder. Just then, Fu Qing quickly looked around for a weapon. Upon seeing a brick on the ground, she quickly scrambled to it and threw it at the man. Bang! The man fell to the ground with a loud thud. A large patch of blood soon started to pool on the ground next to his forehead. With the immediate threat gone, Fu Qing finally had time to observe her surroundings, a dark, quiet alley. What was she doing here? She couldn't help but feel confused. She was sure that she has fallen asleep in her room at the Fu family's villa after dinner. So how did she end up here? And she even got violated by a beggar. Her head full of thoughts, Fu Qing slowly supported herself against the wall and stood up. From the corner of her eye, she noticed the beggar slowly start to move. Panic settled in as she frantically looked for a way out. Because he might wake up any time soon, she hurriedly walked out of the alley. The layout of the alley was complicated. Because there were many forks, she initially could not find her way through it. Fortunately for her, before she was recognized by the Fu family, the largest financial magnate in S City, she had been kidnapped and sold into a remote village where she had spent 18 years. Because of that, she was the best at finding her way around places. She raised her head to look at the sky. Based on the angle of the moon on the dome, she quickly figured out where north and south were. Then, she started to head in the direction of the Fu family's villa. Soon enough, she caught a glimpse of the exit of the alley. Seeing the familiar sight, Fu Qing couldn't help but quicken her steps. She let out a shaky breath of relief that she hadn't realized she was holding. However, just as she was about to get out of the alley, she quickly stopped at the sound of a loud brake. Just then, a black van appeared at the exit of the alley. Making sure they hadn't seen her, she cautiously retreated into the small fork in the alley. She observed as 3 or 4 people got out of the van and threw a sack the size of a person into the garbage pile by the wall. The leader of the group kicked the sack hard. "Zhan Qi, because of the aphrodisiac you took, if you don't sleep with a woman, you'll die. That's just too bad for you. There's not even a shadow here. Let's see who can save you this time." After saying that, he laughed and left with the others. Fu Qing frowned upon hearing this, not knowing if she should walk over and help. The sack suddenly starting moving a few times. It was clear that the person inside was struggling to escape. Seeing this, Fu Qing forgot all about the danger she might get into and ran over to untie the rope at the mouth of the sack. The person inside immediately pounced on her and pressed her under his warm body. A wave of panic uprushed toward her neck, and it suddenly felt itchy and numb under the shine of the moonlight. A handsome, almost godlike face appeared in front of her eyes. "Didn't you hear what those people said just now?" Zhang Qi's voice was hoarse as he sized up Fu Qing. The woman was beautiful, and the sight of her felt like a clear spring flowing through the bottom of his heart. Although there was panic in her eyes, she was clearly not afraid. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only after a moment, she seemed to have made up her mind. "Do you want me to save you?" Zhang Qi placed his swollen lips around her delicate neck and kissed it like mad. The kiss extended to her earlobe before he whispered in her ear, "Save me. I'll take responsibility for you." Fu Qing wanted to retort that they were both adults and she had chosen to do this. There was no need for him to take responsibility. After all, what was more important than saving someone's life at stake? However, she soon forgot about her thoughts once her red lips were enveloped in an overbearing kiss. She couldn't help but let out breathy moans, which were all swallowed by the man above her. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.